Hey you, this is Jasim from CodeBand, and in this video we are going to be talking about models and migrations in Laravel. So if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe my channel and click the bell icon near to it. So without any further, let's jump right into it. Alright guys, so we have discussed about the MVC architecture in the previous lectures where we talked about views and controllers in detail. So if you haven't watched those lectures, please do watch. The link will be in the description section and follow along. So in this one, we'll be talking about the model section. Now I have written here that it is something that is related to the database. So anything that comes under the database section comes under the model category. So what I have to say is it's nothing but, we'll not be writing raw SQL queries such as, if you want to select all fields from or all rows from a table, in SQL we'll write something like select star from that table name. So in here in Laravel or in any other frameworks or in most of the frameworks, we use a concept called ORM, which means object relational mapper, which means we'll not be writing SQL queries. Instead, we'll write something like in the regular PHP, we write regular PHP code, and at the end, it will get transpiled into the corresponding SQL expressions. So in the select query, the equivalent will be something like our model name, : all. And this will be our equivalent, the ORM, but in the sense it will be transpiled into something like the select star from the table name. So this will be the transpiled version. So we'll write this regular PHP one and it will get transpiled to something like this one. Now this is the basic idea. This is just for the select statement. This is not just for the select statement, but for all the statements like creating a new row, or updating it, or anything like that. We use the ORM style, or we write the regular PHP code and at the end it gets transpiled into something that is understandable by the SQL or the database section. So with that being said, that is all about the model. Now we have something called migration. Now migrations are nothing but the database schema, or you don't write something like create table, table name and all those fields. Instead you write some regular PHP code and at the end it also gets transpiled into the corresponding SQL expression. So that's what is the migrations are. Now if you have a table in your database, then there will be a corresponding model in here. So if you have 100 tables, then you'll have 100 models. So in that way, in our application, like we are doing a to-do application, we'll have a model which we'll call it as to do, and we'll have a field in that which we can call it as a title field, and that's it. That's all about our application. Now if we are building an e-commerce application, we'll have separate tables or separate models for shipping, payment and all, and we'll have maybe 50 tables or 50 models. So that's the case in other applications. So in our application we'll have just one model, and you will get all these models and migration stuff. You'll understand when we actually implement it. So we're going to make a model, a new model, our to-do model with just one field, that is title field. So in order to make a model, all you have to say is PHP artisan make, then a colon, model, and in here you have to specify the model name. So I have already told that it is to do. Now there is, you should provide a -m flag, which stands for migration. Now at the time of creating the model, if you give the -m flag, it will also create a migration file for us. Otherwise you have to say like make migration and the name of the migration file. So we are not going to be doing that. We'll instead make the model along with the migrations. Now migrations, as I have told you, is just the schema or whichever fields you want in that model. So you'll get a better understanding once we have done with it. Now I'll click enter. So it created a model successfully along with the migration files. Now the model at the end is a PHP class. So the naming convention is the singular along with each of the words in capital. So if it was like a shipping table, then it will be like the model name would be like shipping, just a singular one with the capital S, or you could say Pascal case. So with that being said, we have in the app folder, back in here in the app folder, we have something like todo.php. Now this is our model class. Now this does not have anything, as will this define our schema in the migration file as we have said, but this one extends the model class. Now the model class gives you all sort of that functionality, like you'll not write any SQL queries, instead you use something like to do colon all to get all those rows in that table, which is much like equivalent to select star from to do. Okay, so that's the whole idea behind the model. All those methods will be accessible from the model class itself, as we are inheriting from the model. So with that being said, we can now find the migration file right in here in the database section. We have a folder called migrations. Therein we can find some other migrations too, along with our own migrations create to-dos table. Now this is a convention that we are creating a to-dos table. Now to-dos is a plural of the to-do, and this is the naming convention of the migration file along with the timestamps in here at the first. Now if you take that migration file, we have that very own schema with the default ID that is being provided by Laravel and a timestamps field, which is nothing but a created at and an updated at fields, which is nothing but the date time fields. So with that being said, we have forgot one thing to mention, that is we'll be using MySQL database. If we go to .env, this file right in here, you can find the database configurations right in here. We'll be using MySQL. You can of course use any database of your choice like Postgres or SQLite, no issues with that. Now all the configurations are set, localhost, port, and the database name is Laravel. The database name is Laravel. The username is root, and I don't have a password. Now I'll change this. We can of course change this database name. So we'll do something like a to-do DB. For instance, our application is to do. So all you have to create is a to-do database. We'll create a database manually in our MySQL. So I'm using XAMPP. So I have run all those Apache and MySQL. Now if you haven't downloaded XAMPP, then I'll put the link in the description so that you can download and just open the control panel and start these two, Apache and MySQL. Now with that being said, you can go to the browser and in the localhost /phpMyAdmin, you can just create a new database by clicking in the new button here, and I'll specify the database name as to-do-db. I'll create one. Now with that being said, a database has been created. Now we'll not be creating any tables because that will be done by the migration file itself in here. So we have the ID field and timestamps field right in there. Now we need, I have already said that in our to-do application we have just one field, like the title field. So we'll create one. So the syntax is much like the above, the ID and timestamps. We'll do a $table and an arrow. Now herein we specify the column type, or we should say whether it is varchar or integer or something like the char or whatever it be. And I have a documentation set up here in the Laravel documentation where you have all those table and the corresponding fields in here. So I'll put the link in the description section so you can refer these. Now we'll be interested in the string field, this one right here, which is equivalent to varchar in terms of SQL with a max length or attribute. So we'll be using this stuff. So all you have to do is just type in string. Now the name of the field is title, and we have a length, optional length. We'll set that to something like 124. Then that is of course up to you. So with that being said, we have set up our schema for this table, the to-do table, or in plural terms it is to-dos right in here. Now with that being said, all I have to do is migrate. Now there is a command called php artisan migrate, which does transform these schema into our actual database itself. Now there is, if we refresh this one, there we don't have that tables yet. We just have our the to-do DB right in there. We just have the to-do DB with no tables. Now we need to export this schema into the actual database itself, so that we do this command php artisan migrate, which will take all those migration files. It will take also these users and failed jobs, which is the default Laravel migration files responsible for authentication stuffs, and this one is our to-do table or to-do migration file. Now upon writing this php artisan migrate, it will take all those files, all those migration files, and get transformed into the actual database. So if you click that, if we type enter, it says migrated. So if we come back in here and if we reload the page, we got all those migrations. Now these are the regular ones that is provided by the Laravel. Now this is what we have created, that is the to-do table. Now the table name is of course the plural one of our model name, that is to-do is transformed into to-dos. Now herein you can see the ID field, the title field, and the timestamps, which is not about the created at and updated at timestamps or datetime fields. So with that being said, now we have our table up and running. Now I will just make some, we don't have rows in here, so we'll create some rows by using an interactive shell that is provided by the Laravel known as Tinker. So we'll type in something like php artisan Tinker, which will open a shell for us, and now we'll just query the database, so that we if we have anything, then it will return those things. Now we don't have any rows, so it will return null. So in order to get all the items in the database or in the table itself, in our to-do table, we just say to-do, that is the model name, then colon, and we'll say all, which is a static method. So we are accessing the static method by using this syntax. This is regular PHP. So we'll say that, and we go all an empty array. Now this is nothing but we don't have any rows in here, so it just returns an empty array. Now we'll be making a new row. So in order to do that, we'll create an instance of this to-do model. Now these are object-oriented concepts, so if you're not familiar with, please do watch a separate tutorial on just the basics of object-oriented concept. So we'll make an object, we'll call it as a to-do, $to-do is equal to a new to-do of, so we'll make a new to-do instance. So this is our model name, by the way. So we'll click enter. Now we'll say like $to-do, then we'll access the title property. We have the title property right in there. Now the ID field is auto increment primary key field, so we don't have to manually specify that, and the timestamps too, it is automatically generated by Laravel side. So we'll just set the title, and we'll just say a string like code band or channel name. I'll just do the semicolon. Now we have the title set. Now you can see this doesn't update the database. Now in order to hit the database, we have to explicitly say like $to-do save. Now this save method will do that SQL query like insert into to-do, then the values and all those stuff. So if we just say to-do save, now it returns true. Now if we do refresh this stuff, we have got one property. Now this is what we have just created, the code band with the timestamps being auto generated and the ID too. So with that being said, now if we query our database, our table, so just like this one, to do all, if we fetch all of the rows, available rows, then we get that very own code band that we have just created. So that is all about the basic concepts of the models and migrations. Now I'll recap this session again. Models are just the database wrapper, in the sense we will not be writing the regular SQL queries. Instead we'll do something like this one. the to do all or to do create, and there are a lot of things, and at the end it will get transpiled into the regular SQL expressions. And the migrations are nothing but the schema, which defines the schema for table. So we'll just specify all of the fields right in here, and we have the documentation for that in here, all the available fields, and you can refer this one too. So that's all about the models and migration. Now if you have any doubts, please let me know in the comment section. If you fell into some errors while migrating or while creating database, please let me know in the comment section. And that's all about the video. You'll get a better understanding once we actually dive this one into programmatically in our controller that we have just created in the last lecture. We have the to-do controller. Now we'll do all of these steps, like we'll fetch all of those to-dos, we'll create ones in the controller, we'll do it programmatically in the upcoming lectures, so you'll understand all of these in a better way. So with that being said, if you like the video, please hit the thumbs up button, and that's it guys. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.